Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry, and we're still in March Madness mode. Like, we're going through everything that kind of happened. We're not going to break down everything, but just give our overall thoughts on what transpired on the early weekend, then go through the Sweet 16 preview. Kind of break down each game, give you thoughts on each one of them. We'll go through that, and then who we think maybe can win the tournament. Just give you some overall general ideas about who we think is going to cut down the nets at the end, who's going to be in the Final Four. Kind of spitball a little bit at the end here. So that's what we got on deck for you, Tyson. I hope you can understand me because I lost my voice a little bit, so I'm sounding a little bit under the weather right now. But it's just because I was at a wedding and screaming at March Madness simultaneously.
You have the phone up. You have the March Madness live bet or app up while you're standing next to the groom up at the front in front of everybody.
So we were sitting down, which was very nice. My cousin, shout out Jake, congratulations. But two of his friends went to Michigan State, and it was right in the middle of them playing North Carolina. And we were talking before we got on. They got off to a hot start, and I think they're kind of happy that it fizzled out, because if it would have been a tight one, I really think they might have had to pull the phone out.
That's why we got to get somewhere with these Google glasses or whatever they are. I need to be able to just throw some shades on and be able to watch the game, because I enjoy going to weddings. I like them and everything, but sometimes we're sweating bets.
Yeah, sometimes we're sweating bets here at the I Said What I Said podcast. But let's jump right into it. Overall thoughts on March Madness. I'll throw it to you because, on our preview, Tyson, we said we had a feeling this was going to be a chalky year, and this is one of the most historically chalky years that we've had in recent memory. So that was my just kind of overview from this. But if we want to get into the nitty gritty, I'll toss it to you. What did you think of the tournament in the first weekend?
Well, first weekend is always like a ton of fun. It does feel strange that our Cinderella, so to speak, this year is the ACC champions. Like, that doesn't necessarily compute. And then you're looking at Clemson, and then you kind of run back through their regular season too, and it's like, damn, probably should have seen some of these coming. I'm kind of looking at my wounds, dude. This might be one of the worst brackets I've turned in ever. At St. Mary's, I had making a deep run. Boom. Round one. Auburn, I had making a deep run. They got boomed round one. I didn't buy into Kentucky, but that didn't save me, Brad. So it's been tough. I always fill out a bracket with just chalk just to see where it finishes, and that is actually my best bracket in the ESPN pool at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with you there with the Auburn, with St. Mary's, and I trusted BYU, and that game was frustrating. I mean, those big guys, man, I've seen better sixth grade big men than what BYU is putting out on the floor there. So that was tough. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm at the bottom of the bracket pool. I think I got a shot here if a couple of the teams I got remaining make a deep run. So I think if we get 3 out of the 4 into the Final Four that I have remaining, I think I'm going to have a good shot here, Tyson. But we'll see. The first weekend, everybody picks the upsets. Everybody wants to happen, and it's like, yeah, but you got to wait till the weighted games come in later, and that's really what you're rooting for to win.
Yeah, and unfortunately for you, me, and pretty much everybody else in the country, whatever pool you're in, there's probably 15 people with UConn. And Brad, they look like a goddamn wagon. This team looks, like we all heard the last Kendrick, the diss track on the Metro album. This is not the big three, this is big me. That's how they're treating the rest of the Big East right now. They are running through everybody. Look, Northwestern they're a fun team. They're a good story. I'm not reading too deep into UConn doing what they did to them, because I think if that game was played in the middle of January, it's probably a similar outcome to the one that we just got in March. But it's not often, that I feel like you can just tell with, like, these guys were ready for the moment from the get-go. Typically the 16s will hang around with the overall number one until halftime. They're just getting people out of there, man. And it's pretty impressive.
The other thing, too, and my uncle says it every single year, and so we were talking at the wedding, and he goes, I tell you, every single year, the Big Ten and the SEC, the most overrated conferences when it comes to this tournament.
Yeah, and what do we see? He says that they should get more teams.
Oh, of course, right? And they're probably going to get it. It's ridiculous. I mean, just Auburn, we talked about their metrics. They lose to a Yale team that, skated by on a buzzer beater and then was completely decimated against the San Diego State. And just go through the list here. I mean, the only one that you can kind of point to, okay, Michigan State beat the SEC team, but that's a Big Ten against an SEC team, right? Like, and Michigan State always wins the tournament. I guess, Bama puts up 1 million points on Charleston, then beats Grand Canyon. But, Baylor loses as a favorite, the only favorite heading into the Sweet 16 that lost. It's just every single year the SEC and the Big Ten find a way to lose games, except for like the top of the line. But they get in a million teams and they always underperform. Meanwhile, ACC, and I was downplaying it a little bit, right? Like, oh, I don't know. Can we trust NC State? They won the ACC tournament. And meanwhile, they're in the Sweet 16. Like every single year, the ACC overperforms for their metrics. All year long, you hear these bracketologists underrate the ACC. And yet them in the Big East, they make the deep runs. The Mountain West, the Big Ten, and the SEC underperform. Like it's clockwork. We got to start remembering that next year. You know what? I'm writing that down in my notebook.
It's pretty funny that we get to tournament time every year, and then people are like, I didn't know North Carolina was playing defense, or like those Florida State teams, and you can kind of just every year it's like, yeah, well, that's why the metrics weren't crazy for these teams on offense. Like these are the guys that they're playing in conference play over and over and over again. And quickly, because I brought up, Sankey saying that like if we expand the field, we'll add more teams from the big conferences because these one bid leagues like really shouldn't be here. Do you want a 30-win Indiana State team, or do you want a 15-win Missouri team? If we're going to expand the tournament, give it to these teams that dominated their regular season and then lose, in the Indiana State instance in like kind of a heartbreaking fashion to a team that, we all thought they were better than throughout the season. Mm-hmm. I just dude, I can't handle, a 15-win Missouri making, or what did they go this year? They went 13, whatever it was. It was like,
not good.
It was bad. Yeah. And so keep them out of my March Madness. This is the only thing that the NCAA hasn't found a way to utterly ruin. And it sounds kind of like they're trying.
Yeah. Can we get the committee out of here too? Like these guys don't watch college basketball. Like Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, let their stuff do the talking. If that's the case, we have Indiana State, St. John's, and Seton Hall. Looks like a wagon in the NIT. How's
the Big East doing in the tournament, huh? The three teams that they got in, how are those guys performing?
They're all in the Sweet 16.
Who'd they build their resume off of in the regular season? Teams that weren't good enough to get in? That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It's crazy. It is crazy. Anything you want to close with before we get into the preview? I think overall this has been a good tournament. I think people will say, it's not been good because there hasn't been the upsets. But Tyson, heading into the Sweet 16, we'll break these down. These are matchups. Like these are heavyweight fights. I'm pumped for this weekend.
And that's what it's about, really. Like the Cinderellas and stuff are fun. Also, if you flip Saturday and Sunday, right? If the games that happened on Sunday took place on Saturday and then flipped them, people would be freaking out, super excited for this. It's just Sunday was pretty chalky and full of blowouts, so people aren't, over the moon. I think Oakland was probably my favorite story of the tournament. It was nice to see Rocket Watts kind of pop back up here because I'm getting texts, do you remember this guy? I'm like, yeah, it was Big Ten first team all freshman. Like, he's a good player. It would have been cool to see them keep rolling, but I'm with you. Like, it's the first time in a couple years at least that I feel like there are 16 teams that are, I don't want to say deserving because that's the wrong word, but have the resume to back up being left.
So let's get into it. Sweet 16 preview. And just if you're unaware, we have all 4 of the 1 seeds. We have all 4 of the 2 seeds. We said it's chalky. It's been chalky. We got a 3 seed. How many 3 seeds do we have here? We have 2 3 seeds. Like Tyson, like you said, the only Cinderella, the only double-digit seed is NC State. Clemson, the only seed higher than the 5. It is shocking. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Is North Carolina State getting bigger crowd pops than pretty much any team that you can remember through March Madness?
Well, they're fun. They're
awesome.
They've been fun all year. You just don't know if they're defending or not. Like, are they going to show up and defend? That's the issue because they'll score points.
There might be some handprint hacks here and there, but that's my other favorite part of March Madness is people complain because they complain about the NBA because the NBA, whistles are blown every time up the court. And then in college, it's like, I can't believe that wasn't a fact. You can't have it both ways, man.
I've enjoyed the physicality of the tournament too, and I'm hoping they don't swallow the whistle because it feels like sometimes when it goes deeper, then, they have time to sit around. It's like, should we tweak some things? Let the kids play, man. Like if it's not like an obvious foul, I've enjoyed the physicality. I think it's added to the drama. You're not on the free throw line for half the game. I think it's been great.
And if you're on the wrong side of a block attempt, don't blow your whistle. Shout out to Scott Matthews and the Kansas Jayhawks because you escaped with one, and we're only a week away from that. And nobody's talking about Samford anymore. It's funny how that works.
Truly. So let's get into it. We're going to start in the East region. We're going to work our way down by region. Remember the other thing, there's 4 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday. We're really dwindling this thing down. But let's start here. So this is a rematch of last year's national championship game. As Tyson pointed out, UConn just looks like a wagon. I have major concerns about San Diego State's offense. Their defense has been awesome. They popped a little bit against Yale. They were hitting shots, but again, that's Yale. This is a different beast. UConn's favored by double digits. That feels a little large to me, but just based on how UConn has performed, it's hard to argue against. How do you see this game? Not even betting wise, just breaking it down on the court.
Well, I'll say this, and I know anything can happen because it's March Madness, but these are the 2 teams that played in the national championship game a year ago. University of Connecticut is better than they were a year ago, and San Diego State is worse. And that, I think, you can use that kind of logic to justify this line. I think this version of the UConn team, dude, they're so fluid. Clinton just can allow them to do different things on defense than Sonogo was able to a year ago. Obviously, it's different on the offensive end when you don't have a guy. You can just go, here, put it in the basket. But they found other guys to do that. It's a well-oiled machine. Ledie's going to have to do whatever he can, anything in his power. He's probably been maybe the best overall player in this tournament, probably the second best scorer. I don't know the actual points behind Cuisinart from Oregon. I'm sure he's first at this point in the tournament. But, I think that it's the same thing we talked about a year ago. If San Diego State's going to win this game, the ball's going to have to bounce their way more than once. They're just going to get out-athleted, and they're going to have to find a way to kind of get around that.
Yeah, Lamont Butler is going to have to be huge. The guard, Micah Parrish, the senior. This is a senior-laden team. They got, experience. They got some depth and older guys, which I think is going to help them here. But, what are they really going to be able to do? They're just going to be outsized, man. Ledie is 6'9", and you're going against Kling, and you got, Miles Hyde, but he's a freshman at 6'10". It's going to be thin. If they're fouling, they're getting in trouble. This is going to be hard for San Diego State. So I think this is going to be a tough one for them to win. I think UConn rolls and advances. For me, it's hard to see that UConn doesn't make the Final Four.
I think we're going to get a lot of lobs out of UConn this week.
Let's move into Illinois, Iowa State, because this is an interesting matchup because Illinois is all offense. Iowa State's really all defense. We're looking at things here. Adjust the defense. Iowa State's the best in the country. My thing when I'm breaking this down, I have major concerns about Iowa State's offensive ability, but it feels like anybody can score on Illinois' defense. Can Iowa State's defense travel enough to slow down what Illinois wants to do? And if that's the case, can they get enough easy shots against this soft defense? I tend to go with defense travels, especially when you're going to a new arena. I think it's going to be a different sight line. It's going to be something different for Illinois to look at. I lean Iowa State here. I think their defensive ability facing an Illinois soft defense has me leaning towards Iowa State, but I'm always worried about their offense.
And if this was a round of 32 matchup, I think, I would be more inclined to be, heavier towards the Illinois side. I'm with you on Iowa State. I think, getting the extra 5 days off of prep or whatever that the actual math works out to. I failed Algebra 2 twice in high school. Leave me alone. I'm impressed by this Iowa State team. I think, selfishly and for all of us, they're still kind of boogeymen around. It's the same thing. Until they win one, until Purdue wins one, we're going to remember Gorgie Jang, throwing the ball out of bounds with 3 seconds left and costing them a game as a 2 seed a couple of 7 years ago now. That's kind of in the front of your mind. Illinois hasn't played a defense like this all year, and they've scored on everybody. Iowa State hasn't played an offense like this, like Illinois has so far this season. So it'll be interesting. But dude, we've seen how many times do we have to watch this tournament and realize that when the Sweet 16 starts, a lid gets put on the rim for the first 7 minutes of the game. And I just don't know. I think Illinois has to, kind of boat race him in the first half, at least the first 10 minutes, get out and get running. That's basically the only way I can see them. I don't think they're beating Iowa State in a half court game.
I don't think so either. That's my thing. If you're an Illinois backer, I just think Iowa State's going to muck this thing up. That's what they want to do, and that's my concern for Illinois. North Carolina, Alabama, similar type of deal here because, we think of North Carolina, they're run and gun type of team. Not this year. They're 6th in adjusted defense. We went over that in our preview for the tournament. Alabama, on the flip side, they're 101st in adjusted defense. Like, this is not a good defense, but they are one of the best offensive teams. Can they get out? Can they spread out North Carolina? Are they going to have the ability to have open looks against North Carolina team who maybe quite hasn't experienced an offense quite like Alabama this season, at least from what they want to do type of perspective? Of course, the other side of that is North Carolina can also score. Like, maybe it doesn't matter if Alabama's getting shots because they may just be efficient and score at will here too.
And can Alabama rebound? Because it's a fun thing I think that we do in March with Alabama. We've done it the last couple of years where the tournament starts and it's like, oh, maybe these guys can guard. Like, maybe they were just taking it easy, and then you kind of go, oh, that was the best team from the MAC or whatever that they were able to put the boots to. That Grand Canyon game was a bit scary for me from the Alabama side. Obviously, stars win games, and stars are what shine in this tournament, and they're shined, very brightly when it mattered. They were able to make shots and get things going. The problem is North Carolina is not Grand Canyon. These are guys that have played in national championship games. These are guys that have had, deep tournament run experience. I think they're going to weather the storm of Alabama because, unlike Illinois, I think Alabama can score on anybody in the country, and I think they can do it for 40 minutes. North Carolina is just a tough matchup for Alabama.
Yeah, I have a hard time picking against North Carolina in this one. Again, it's back to what we just talked about. It's the defense, man. Like, you have to stop somebody. And if you're going to face an efficient offense like North Carolina, I think North Carolina is going to advance here. They were picked by a lot of people to be the most vulnerable number 1 seed, and maybe that's just because of the profiles of the others. I have a hard time seeing them going down to Alabama. Clemson, Arizona. You know what? We got to give props to Arizona, right? Because we said, we can't really trust them. They, outside of a couple minutes in that Dayton game, Tyson, I mean, they've really taken care of business here. And you got to face a Clemson team. I mean, efficient on offense. They look solid. They look like the team that they did in the preseason where people were picking them to be a Sweet 16 team, and ultimately they were able to make that happen. How do you see this game going?
This is going to be, all of these that we've talked about to this point. There's some later on that aren't so much, but these are, again, another style clash because I don't like the end of that Baylor game might have tainted people's idea of what this Clemson team is, because college kids just get a lead and then decide they're going to go 40 miles an hour and go as fast as they can and, almost lose the game. But they might just walk this thing up the court. And I think that if they can control tempo, then Arizona could potentially be in trouble. But this is, I'm going to get bit in the butt next week for saying this, but this Arizona team plays controlled. They play smart, and they're more physical than in years past. Again, there's some stink here. I don't think Clemson is the one to kind of unearth it, but I think on our previous show, I think we both had Arizona going to the Elite Eight, something like that. This is a good basketball team, and I think Clemson was the most popular upset pick as an 11 seed or as a 6 seed against an 11 for a reason. They've been able to get here through, they're physical. They're more athletic, I think, than people realize. The problem is, this is not North Carolina's defense. This is not some of these other teams that we've talked about. I think Arizona can just kind of set the tempo, set the pace, and do what they want.
Yeah, and then we talk about stylistically – what's a recipe for an upset? Clemson, 257th in adjusted tempo. Arizona is 16th. So, they want to go fast. They want to run. They want to go. Clemson, they can play efficiently. They're 257th in adjusted tempo, 24th in adjusted offense. So, they can be efficient. They can beat you in the half court. Arizona, there's some questions if they can do that. Now, Caleb Love's kind of an eraser a little bit, because he can hit shots. But if he's missing shots, I don't believe in Boswell in terms of an offensive explosion. Now, maybe Ballo can beat you down low because he's added some elements to his game that are strong. But, man, I think if this thing goes to a crawl and you're looking at Arizona's going to have to win a close one in half court, that's where you get a little nervous. I'm curious if Arizona is going to be able to speed up Clemson. I think if they can do that, they will win. I'm not sure if Clemson's going to be allowed to. But, yeah, I mean, I had Arizona in my Final Four. So I definitely think that they're going to win this game. I just think it's going to be closer, maybe what the book suggested, 7.5 as well.
The Clemson kind of give you like Washington State vibes, like a little bit. They kind of remind me a little bit of Wazoo, who gave Arizona some trouble in the regular season, just like style of play. Uh, but this is I'm just wondering if maybe uh, that could be a look here. It's so hard to trust Arizona with these bigger numbers.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Even though they've covered them both times this season, or
I've lost
in the tournament. Yeah. Okay, let's get into my game. Houston Duke. Now, Tyson, we said on the show here, we both had Houston and Duke meeting at this point. Now, for me, I have Houston winning the championship. If Duke's able to win, my favorite team, I'm kind of like an emotional hedge here. So, Duke's impressed me. Duke's been impressive to me. I think outside of UConn, really, is there been a more impressive team? I mean, they dominated Vermont. It wasn't close. Like, they embarrassed them. Then they absolutely smoked James Madison 93-55. They've been efficient. They've been defensively savvy. Now, I think it helped that they played at the Barclays Center. That's an NBA arena. James Madison and Vermont, they're not used to that. Duke gets those sight lines. Like, they play in the NBA arenas in preseason. They're kind of used to that. So I think it's going to be different here against Houston. My worry is I don't know if Duke's going to be able to match up physically against Houston at the point of attack. I like their guards in Makin and Proctor. I think they're NBA players. But at the college level, you got the older guys of Houston who've been able to body people, be physical, get into Duke. And if the refs are going to let Houston play, that's a huge advantage. If it goes ticky-tacky and, all my Twitter and X mentions are going nuts saying Duke gets all the calls, I think Duke has a shot here. But if that's not the case, I think Houston could actually run away with this one.
I think if Houston shows up and looks like they did against Texas A&M, they're in for a long night. I was not impressed with the way they look. We just got done crapping on the SEC, and they almost took down the number 2 overall team in the country there. It was a close game to the end. Duke has been wildly impressive. Maybe Purdue would be the only other one like that you could say could be number 2 as most dominant here. But I mean, Duke made everything they looked at against James Madison. And sometimes, if you get hot at the right time, like anybody could go down. We know that. I tend to agree with you. I think Kelvin Sampson's a hell of a coach. Shout out to Montana Tech University, the Kelvin Sampson gym. But they're just more experienced, which is a weird kind of place to be when you're talking about a Duke team with some of these guys. But I think Duke's got to shoot the lights out again. It's just nobody really does that against Houston for a reason.
Yeah, I think, Filipowski's going to have to be huge here. You're going to have to rebound. You're going to have to
You're going to have to rebound for the whole game.
Yeah. Don't get Tyson going. You want to tell the story, or is it too painful?
Oh, man. I lost a pretty sizable bet on Kyle Filipowski. I had him for 7+ boards. I think he had 4 in the first 2 minutes. I think he ended the game with 5. So right now, he's on the shit list for sure.
Don't tell Charlie Baker you're betting on these college kids. He'll come after you. Okay. I'm hoping Duke wins as a fan, but if not, emotional hedge, Tyson. This bracket's already ripped up anyway. I'm tacking this up as who cares. So let's go Duke. Let's pull off the upset.
Let's go Duke.
NC State Marquette. Let's talk about the Cinderella here. Marquette, there was questions about Tyler Collett coming in here. He's actually looked really good, but how much can you trust Shaka Smart? I mean, that Colorado game was nerve-wracking. I mean, for a while, that Western Kentucky game was nerve-wracking. And NC State, they are playing with house money. They are confident. They're good. They can beat you at the point of attack on multiple levels. I think this one could have upset written all over it. Now, at the same time, I'm looking at it, it's like, man, you got hot for a week in the ACC tournament. You're able to continue that and those good vibes. Is this thing just going to run out of steam here? That's my only question. I would lean Marquette to get this thing done. This is one of the best Marquette teams that we've had under Shaka Smart. I mean, when we're looking at advanced numbers, we said this, they're top 20 or top 22 in both adjusted O and adjusted defense, extremely balanced. But NC State's just one of those teams, we talk about from the ACC, get hot, you kind of have everything at every level. You can beat teams in this tournament.
Yeah, the Shaka with hair era in March is certainly, it's been something to watch. I actually, I was down on Marquette for the first 25 minutes of the Western Kentucky game, and then it was like, oh my goodness, this team's going to win the national championship. The way they look, and that Colorado game didn't necessarily sour me on Marquette, but last year coming into the tournament, do you remember talking just ad nauseum. I think all of us were like how physical this Marquette team was and how this was going to be the team to make the run. And I just obviously didn't work out last year. This year I feel like there's a different swagger is not the right word because I think like with the Shaka team, they're always going to kind of come with the same attitude, but there's a different belief. I think last year's team loses that Colorado game, but this year's team wasn't good enough to win the game by 15 like they should have. And that makes me nervous against the North Carolina State team. I think the X factor here, I think everybody's focused on the wrong DJ, man. I think it's DJ Horn. It's the guard up top. What did he shoot? 41% on a million threes this year during the Pac-12 regular season. This is a guy that if you're going to consistently double the big man down low, he's going to be open, and he's quicker off the dribble than a lot of guards are in the Big Ten. And then still, Kolek looks good and he looks fluid and everything, but a week off, that's maybe enough time for him to continue to recover, or it's maybe enough time to reset that thing. And if he's sliding side to side, like I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to keep up with DJ Horn if he's on. If he's off, this thing gets ugly quick.
Yeah, this a pretty veteran-laden team. You mentioned DJ Horn, DJ Burns, seniors. Casey Morcell, who's been huge for him, senior. Ben Middlebrooks, junior. Jaden Taylor, junior. So you got some older guys here. It's like a classic one of these ACC teams who kind of just build and they make a run. Like it was Miami last year. You can kind of count, other like North Carolina year before when they went to the championship with that unit, a couple young guys mixed in. But Tyson, the only reason I pause, I'm scrolling through because they're Cinderella. This is probably obvious, but they easily have the worst profile out of any team left in this tournament. Clemson being the second worst, 42nd adjusted offense, 75th in adjusted defense. That to me is a recipe that maybe the glass slipper isn't going to fit here by the end of this, but I think it'd be fun if they kept it rolling.
If they were a Big Ten team, that number would be like 26th on offense and 50th on defense.
Well, according to the committee, I don't know about Ken Palm. All right, last couple ones here. Purdue and Gonzaga. Now, this is interesting because, everybody was down on Gonzaga coming in, right? It was a popular upset pick with McNeese. They met Kansas, and they boat raced them in the second half. So their guards, here's the thing. Their guards are good, and Graham Ike down low can really score and rebound. And I think that gives them a shot. Anton Watson on the weak side, he can kind of play that dunker role. Like if you're an NBA fan, like Aaron Gordon for the Nuggets, where you kind of have Ike can control it, kind of throw it up to him, attack on the weak side. I think that helps him more than in years past, where they've really been guard laden. Not saying that this team isn't, but I think you have some different options down low as well. With Ike, I think that gives him a better chance against Zach Edey. The problem is the guards for Purdue have taken a major step forward from where they were last year. And that's the biggest thing. And that's what people wanted to see coming in. How does these guards look this year compared to last year when they couldn't break a press, they couldn't handle high pressure, they couldn't make a pass. And this year it's been completely different.
It doesn't feel like painter ball. Like it doesn't feel like a Matt Painter, disaster class is incoming with this team. What they did to Utah State, dude, should be illegal. Ooh. Like that was disrespectful. It was rude. Shout out to Danny Sprinkle for parlaying that into an upgrade of a position. Zach Edey he's one of the most dominant college players, not just in recent memory, but I think we got to go back, 20 years. There's I don't know what a lot of people in college basketball are doing with this guy over its history. He doesn't open his mouth. He doesn't complain. I get the Zach Edey hate because he's 7'4" and it's like, oh, he's bullying these people. But when's the last time these people heard his voice? Like this is a solid player, a good player, and seems like a good leader. But kind of mentioned in the preview show that Gonzaga, there was just something about this team that I thought that, this might be the one to make a little bit of not a surprise run, but just a run farther than people thought they were going to go. It was funny to listen to people kind of realize that McNeese State's schedule wasn't a real college basketball schedule. It was like, yeah, we know. But this Gonzaga team, they can score from every level, not quite as efficiently as in years past, but they're not scared to shoot the ball. And I think, playing without fear is a huge part of being able to beat this Purdue team because it's not just, this season and this tournament that I'm basing this take off of. I've seen a lot of Purdue teams that once they get looked in the eye, things kind of go south quickly. I don't think this is one of them. Brad, Purdue has shooters. Who said that was? That's like LSU getting a quarterback. It's just some stuff shouldn't be allowed in college sports, and Purdue getting shooters makes them. Dude, they're so scary. This is the one team that I think nobody has circled out of the ones is like, oh, they could win the national championship, but they look awesome.
They look really good. You're right. And when I'm looking at the matchup here, third in adjusted offense for Purdue, and you see why. I mean, they're efficient. They can score. Like you said, they can shoot the rock. And it still comes back to me with Gonzaga's defense. Like they're 40th in adjusted defense. Where it flips, I think, Gonzaga's offense 7th in adjusted offense, but Purdue's defense is 15th. Like this is a good defensive team. And I think in the past with these guards, we talked about their inefficiencies on offense, breaking a press, being able to entry pass into Zach Edey. They've also been run around or run through, and that hasn't been the case so far. I think just another year of Big Ten physical basketball has kind of weathered these guys, and I think you're seeing that so far in the tournament. Now, this is going to be their biggest test, obviously. When you're playing Grambling State to start, and then you get a Utah State team that's Mountain West team. Congrats, you won your first game ever in the freaking tournament, and then you go into run Purdue and they NBA you. You're going to have to really play against Gonzaga. We'll see how good that defense is then, because those guards for Gonzaga are no joke. I have Purdue winning. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. I really think that there's a good chance Purdue wins this thing. I'll just put it that way. I know we got Final Four predictions, but man, this team's good. Creighton, Tennessee. Had to save this for last because Tyson and I have probably been drinking the Creighton Kool-Aid for about 4 years.
Yeah, a long time.
We were even the post-apocalyptic era of when Doug McDermott left. We've been on the Creighton train for a long time. When people jumped off the McDermott train, we were still on board. So this is a clash of styles, right? I mean, Creighton just everything's beautiful on offense, perfect sets, awesome, efficient against a Tennessee team whose offense, better than in years past. I think they might have the best NBA player in the tournament left in Dalton Connect, maybe even before it tipped, and Dalton Connect. But a defense.
Shout out to the Big Sky Conference.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? This is a dude that was at Northern Colorado a year ago. What is going on?
He might be the top 3 pick, dude.
It doesn't make any sense. I'm thinking to myself, I paid $7 to watch this guy play in college, and now he's the player of the year in the SEC. Dude, when Ryan Kalkbrenner stepped up and hit that 3-point shot, when it looked like all hope was lost for Creighton, I got a feeling that maybe these Final Four takes that we had weren't going to age all that poorly, and then I just kept watching Tennessee out of the corner of my eye and watching the way this team plays defense, and it's different. It's a Tennessee thing. We know that they're going to be physical. You want to talk about handprint hacks? I think these Tennessee guys are the best in the country, and I don't want to say not getting called for fouls, but it seems like, with the level of physicality, they force the refs to kind of allow certain things. And I think that could be a recipe. It feels like this would be an upset if Tennessee pulls this off, in all honesty. And I understand they're a higher seed. They, had a great season and probably a better conference. I think at this point in March, it's kind of that time of the year where that's up in the air. But I think Tennessee might be getting slept on a little bit just by the general public. I think a lot of the sentiment that I've heard, it's part of the reason is probably know the Creighton players' names. They've been in this tournament in our house for 4 years.
Vegas has Tennessee as 2.5-point favorites right now, which is interesting, which makes sense, right? They're because again, defense is going to travel here, and can Creighton do it against the physicality of Tennessee? That's what worries me. I love Creighton. I know you do too. We're going to be rooting for Creighton, so it's hard to be impartial. I'd love to see them make a deep run. They were so close to the Final Four last year. That'd be sick. But to me, as much as I hate Tennessee's offense, I think the physicality that they can present here, that's going to make it hard for Creighton. And so I think Tennessee's actually going to win this game. Break our heart once again, Tyson. But hey, at least they didn't lose before the Sweet 16, so we can be proud of them.
That's true. I need Baylor to put the headband back on.
I know. Maybe he does that in the second half if it's getting a little too chippy against Tennessee.
Go in down 20, throw on the headband, come out fighting.
That'd be sick.
Is Ryan Kalkbrenner going to be able to protect the rim against these guys? I think is like the number one question, because this might be the best defensive big in the country, right? We all know the numbers, and it's not like the resume is poor. He's playing against really good bigs every night, seemingly in the Big East, but it's just a different level of I want to go through your chest, I think, that Tennessee brings.
Oh, I mean, when you talk about the size too, I mean, Adu, 6'11", Josiah Jordan James, 6'7", plays much bigger. I mean, and these guys are grown men, man. Like, these guys are built like a brick, you know what? Like, these are some big boys down there, and they play up to their size. So I agree with you. And if you can, and Kalkbrenner never fouls, but if you get him in foul trouble, it's a completely different Creighton look. And I think that's going to be the plan by Rick Barnes. But Tyson, this is also the time of the tournament. Rick Barnes says, "See ya.
Yeah.
It's time for my off season." So
it feels like a win when he gets to the Sweet 16. Everybody starts going like, "Is this the year?" Right. And then we look around the Elite Eight and go, "Where'd he go?"
Yeah, exactly. So that's our Sweet 16 preview. Let's get into our Final Four predictions here. We did these early. Some of our teams are out, but let's start into the East bracket where you got UConn, San Diego State, Illinois, and Iowa State. Who do you have coming out of that region?
UConn. Like I had UConn to win the tournament before the tournament started. I had UConn to win the tournament before the year started. I have UConn to win the tournament right now.
I have UConn as well. I had them losing to Auburn. I wanted to be contrarian. Well, the smart kids at Yale decided to outsmart the public school at Auburn, so that was unfortunate for me. Let's move down to the West. North Carolina, Alabama, Clemson, Arizona. Who do you have coming out?
I still like this North Carolina team to come out of here. I think this broke actually better than it could have. Like, I genuinely, and I might be an idiot for this, but I thought St. Mary's presented the most unique challenge to North Carolina in that region, and they got bounced right away because it's March, and they might not have packed their lunch, so to speak, to go against that Grand Canyon team, which has been like their fans better travel to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight in the Final Four because it's been pretty awesome. But I got North Carolina.
I'm going to have Arizona coming out of here. I think similar to what you kind of profile with St. Mary's, I think Arizona can do some different things like that. Ballo against Baycott. Baycott's not just going to be able to eat up the glass. I think that helps Arizona. I think their guards can maybe keep them in it a little bit. On paper, I think they profile as a similar team with some wing guys who can rebound, different things like that. So I'm going to go with Arizona coming out of the West. And moving down to the South, Houston, Duke, NC State, Marquette. Who do you have coming out of that region?
When we did the preview, I said that I just kind of penciled Houston into the Final Four and worked backwards, and I haven't necessarily backed off that. I do think that Duke, what is it? Is that game tomorrow or is that Friday?
That is Friday night.
Yeah, I think Friday night Duke has a better shot than anybody else left in this region to get them out of here.
I do too. I think the winner of this game is going to go to the Final Four. I have Houston winning, much to my chagrin, but we got to be partial here, man. We got to be impartial here. We can't root for our teams. And finally, in the Midwest, Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton, and Tennessee. Tyson, you going with the big man, or you going with somebody else?
I mean, I hate to do this to the people. I have Creighton in the Final Four in my actual bracket. Like I said, that thing is ripped to shreds. Brad, we're getting 4 1s in the Final Four this year. I think this is the year. Everyone's been talking about like the separation in college basketball, and we didn't kind of factor in that all these ones are old too, right? Like, this isn't the Kentucky teams with 6 freshmen. These are guys that have been around the block.
Yeah, I have Purdue as well. I think this is a different story. Of course, they're going to make us look stupid. Shout out Matt Painter.
Yes,
and maybe it's Gonzaga who sneaks in. How about that? The team that everybody hated, they're the ones who actually has a shot.
If this is the Gonzaga team that wins a national championship, it would be the best. It would be amazing.
Awesome. That would be the story.
Like, every school in the West Coast Conference should have to build a Mark Few statue if that happens. Dude, he's funded half these athletic programs for a decade.
Seriously, though. So, okay, well, Tyson, I love it. The one seeds, it's going to look like the women's bracket for the longest time. I mean, you could just pencil in the ones for a long time. That'd be something if it was the guys bracket doing the same thing.
You've been watching a lot of the women's?
I watched a little bit of UConn. I watched a little bit of Caitlin Clark, and that's about it. I normally catch up at this time in the Sweet 16. What about you?
I've seen like a bit. I like to check in on South Carolina. I think Dawn Staley's like the coolest person in sports right now. And then obviously watching Caitlin Clark, I had to check out was it Audie Crooks after the 40 burger that she puts up for Iowa State, and that was an interesting game to tune into for my first time viewing her. But overall, I think the women's tournament's been good too. It's just this is the NFL runs the world, and March Madness, the men's side, runs the rest.
Any picks? Let's get in the money making time just to close out. Any picks that we want to give for the weekend?
Well, right now in Montana, I don't know where you guys are. I don't know if this is available on FanDuel. I probably need to look, but each one seed to make the Final Four is plus 1990, and that is something that I've already played, so I figured I'd throw it out on the show.
There we go. I have Iowa State money line minus 125, and Gonzaga at Purdue, and Purdue over 154.5. I think there's gonna be some points in that one. I do like that. Those are my two plays now. Tyson, where can they find the rest?
They will be in the Chalkboard app. It's the App Store or Google Play, wherever you download your apps. The group name is ISWIS Presents the Roundtable Bets. We'll let you write in. It's free. Tell us what you're betting for this week. Tell us what you're betting for the NFL Draft, Brad. We've had some J.J. McCarthy, Will Levis-esque movement up the board, or maybe Scoot Henderson-esque movement. I don't really know where we land on that, but hop right in there. We'd love to hear what you guys are playing. And it could be anything from, horse racing to billiards, whatever you're into.
Snooker. I saw a sick video on that the other day. I was like, oh,
dude,
okay.
It's wild.
I see it. It is sick.
What do you think you learned? Is that like strictly European, or do you think like at a certain point in your life, you're just like, man, I wish all these balls were smaller?
Well, I think it's the different balls, right? Or it's a wider table.
Whatever it is.
I don't know. Whatever I saw on Instagram looked sick. I didn't do the full deep dive, but it was cool. I was like, man, that's pretty electric. So maybe I'd be better at it because there's more balls on the table. I think maybe that's what I'm convincing myself for. But of course, I have no clue what's going on. It just looked cool. So like, subscribe, and share the show. In the meantime, follow us on our socials, X, Instagram, and TikTok at ISWIS_pod for all of them. We're going to close out this March Madness deal before we dive back into football. Like Tyson said, there's been movement. There's been different moves heading into the upcoming NFL draft. We're gonna dive right back in. I did my first mock draft. Tyson's finishing up his. We'll present it to you. I got to make some adjustments before we actually go our 1.0 on the show. So that'll be coming to you next week after we talk some more basketball. We hope you get back into the March Madness swing, and we'll talk to y'all next week, guys. Till then, peace.